The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
Let's get weird on a Wednesday. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. What was that? I've never heard you say I'm JP before like that.
Well, I am. But we're going to a very special place today, so I kind of want to get in my ranchero kind of mode.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to another ranch. If you are familiar with our podcast, then you know we've talked about Skinwalker Ranch on 2 different occasions. Definitely going to probably follow up with another conversation about it, because I'd say of everything that we've done, that's probably the most requested. So be looking for that sometime in the future. If you're new to the channel, before we begin, my name once again is Justin. He's JP. We're the Podcasting Dead. We podcast about a wide range of things, from the Walking Dead to conspiracies, paranormal things, video games. Pretty much if there's a discussion to be had, we try to find time to discuss it. So consider checking out our channel, and we will also give you some information on our Patreon at the end of the podcast. But as for now, we're heading to Arizona, bordering, that borders Utah. So that is which is where Skinwalker Ranch is. So this isn't, relatively speaking, this isn't that far from Skinwalker Ranch. If you're not familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, definitely check out our podcasts on that, which you can find on our YouTube backlogged. Our complete works are on YouTube. If you're listening on SoundCloud or iTunes or Spotify, I think you only get the most recent 5 that we've done. But anyways, owner John Edmonds had always wanted from a young age to own a piece of property and to take care of sick or neglected horses. Like, that's just his thing. Horses were his passion. So he'd always wanted a ranch in which he could do that. So he bought one. Now, granted, this was about 20 years ago. I'm roundabout in here, but about 20 years ago, he bought this ranch in Arizona called Stardust Ranch. And pretty early on, stuff started getting weird for John Edmonds and his wife. So I know and all the information I'm getting comes from different places on the internet. Like you're going to hear us reference some stuff from the Travel Channel, because Ghost Adventures has been there. Also, a wonderful channel on YouTube called Bedtime Stories covered it, and that's where I got most of my information from. Go check it out. Awesome channel. If you like paranormal and weird stuff, they're like us, but 10 times better. Anyways, so he's sitting on his porch one day having a beer. And I don't think he had long bought the property, and was just sitting there and enjoying a nice ice cold beer when this stranger comes walking out the woods, and John notices this guy has something shiny in his hand. So he sets his beer down, goes inside, and grabs a pistol, comes back out and approaches the stranger. And as he gets closer, he realizes the shiny thing was a rusty machete. And this is like something out of a movie. And of course, we're going to talk about how this could all be fake, and John he definitely stood to gain something from faking all of this, but there's still, we'll get to that. But anyways, according to John, this guy was wielding a machete and wearing old tattered military clothes. And John asked him, can I help you? And the guy said that he worked for the previous owners as a, quote, monster hunter. Of course, John found this to be a little bizarre and thought maybe this guy is a little, So John just kind of took a minute and looked around, according to him, and said, well, you know what? I don't think your services are needed anymore, because the property has changed hands. I own it now, and I've not had any problem with monsters. And the guy reportedly drops his machete, walks away, and just like in a horror movie says, "You'll be sorry," and disappears, never to be seen again. Now, back up a little bit. When John bought this property, when he first gets there, all of the previous owner's belongings are still there. So he calls the real estate company, obviously a little upset, hey, I just bought this property from you. Can you please get your people to get their stuff out of my way? So the real estate people were like, absolutely, we'll contact the former owners. Don't worry, just give us a day. He comes back the next day, and all of the belongings are out of the house, but they're all in the pool. Because, yes, this property came with a pool. All of the belongings are sitting in the pool. So the odd thing about that is that the real estate company said that they hadn't been able to reach the previous owners. So it wasn't like they called them and said, get your stuff, and they just did that. The real estate company wasn't able to actually establish contact with the previous owner. So who did that is a mystery and still is. But so as time marches on in Stardust Ranch, strange things start to happen. And see, I think the difference in Stardust Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch, JP, that I noticed, we'll see if you did, Skinwalker Ranch almost seems as if something's going on and the people are just getting in the way. It doesn't necessarily seem like the entities are after the occupants of the ranch. It's like they're mutilating cattle and doing things, and the people on the ranch just happen to keep seeing. You know what I mean? Like they're just observing. Whereas Stardust Ranch, it seems like the entities or whatever is doing this is strictly after the owner and his wife. Did you notice that?
Yeah, they were definitely haunting the owners, and man, that I definitely would have asked that monster hunter guy like what the hell he was talking about. Yeah, right? I mean, I don't know, man.
Somebody shows up on my property with a machete. I mean, yes, I'm definitely going to grab a pistol, but the second he goes, I'm being paid by the owners to hunt monsters, I'd probably get that high pitched voice. What? Wait. What monsters? Yeah,
I would have had a conversation with him for sure.
Yeah, I guess, like I said, I think he just thought this guy might be a little woo-hoo. Like maybe the owners just knew him and were like, he's harmless. Let me give him some money and tell him to go hunt monsters just to keep him busy and give him a little bit of money, you know. Right. I mean, I understand why. I definitely, like you, I'd have been like, wait a minute, elaborate. Monsters? But so as time marches on, John's wife starts telling him that she feels like she's being watched in the farmhouse, that she keeps seeing, and we've actually got a podcast, I believe, on shadow people.
We do.
And she's seeing like shadow people. She's seeing what looks to be like these forms in the corner of her eye, and when she looks, they disappear. And it feels like she's always being watched. Now, he just thought, of course, that's a new place. She's just settling in. It's different. Didn't really put much thought into it. But things started getting weird. I think one of the first times that I remember hearing them talking about was he was laying in bed and he wakes up and he sees these like three figures. They're basically black as night, 4 feet tall, and they just kind of come out of nowhere. And they go over to his wife's side of the bed. So this dude grabs a baseball bat and swings around the bed and smacks one of them, in which instance he claims that a loud shriek was heard, and then the beings just vanished, just disappeared. Yeah. So, you know, I think you and I, when we discussed the shadow people, we both kind of were thinking that if they do exist, it almost sounds like they're transdimensional beings more so than extraterrestrials. I mean, isn't that kind of the conclusion we had come to, if they are, in fact, there's something to it?
Yeah, I think a lot of accounts of demonic activity, paranormal stuff with ghosts, has to do with the dimensions bleeding into ours.
Could be. But so after smacking one of these things, Babe Ruth style, they were gone. And so, they had things happen, like things being moved around. In fact, at this point, John had hidden weapons around his house just to be safe. I know that there were several instances. I mean, this was one of the first encounters he had with the beings, like personal. But I think, his wife told him she thought they were being watched. He didn't really think much about it. And then a few little things. Someone had been tampering with his fencing, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And that's when I think he was thinking more along the lines of, okay, well, maybe somebody is watching us, but thinking like there was a criminal, or trespasser, somebody, a human intruder that was messing with his stuff. And actually, he ends up at one point, I believe it was before the aliens or the whatever these things were in his room, he found a horse of his that had been killed.
Oh.
And the way it was killed was like this little steel beam had been wrapped around its neck, and it was choked with it, like Superman would have done it or something, just taken a steel beam and wrapped it around the horse's neck and choked him with it. And so at that point, that's when he was like, okay, I've got people. He said he didn't understand how that beam could have gotten twisted, but, trying to be logical, we all know that a lot of times, more often than not, there is a rational explanation for how something's done. But that's at the point where he started hiding weapons around his house. And that's where it kind of can seem crazy to outsiders. I believe among these weapons, there was like a samurai sword, baseball bats, and assault rifle like this guy.
Or a straight Punisher.
And I don't know. I say assault rifle. I don't know if he had like a, for the gun people out there, I don't know if it was an actual assault rifle. The accounts I listened to called it an assault rifle. I don't really know what model he had or any of that. So don't shoot the messenger. No pun intended. Or pun intended. But anyways. But so he has that encounter, which of course, so then he calls the police. The police come down and can't find any evidence of anything, but as I'm sure any sound person would be, they are a bit concerned with why there's so many weapons laying around the house. However, this is America. We're free. If I'm a law-abiding citizen, I can have as many weapons as I want. Don't question me. But so, they checked. They couldn't find any evidence of anything that he said. So I know also, and I believe I'm all out of order here, so forgive me. But I also know before this encounter with the three beings in his room, the phone lines were damaged to the property. And he had a really hard time getting someone to send someone to fix this. So finally, a company sends a guy out there to fix it. And out the gate, the guy is very just rushy and antsy, and he's just he's trying to get done as fast as he can to get off the property. So John is like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you, it seems like you're ready to go. And the guy tells him, man, everyone around here stays away from this property, man. We all know it's cursed. And John's like, okay, but so the phone guy fixes it and leaves. And so, of course, somebody comes into your house looking nervous and scared and then leaves in a hurry and tells you your property is cursed. I'm sure it's a bit alarming.
Yeah, that's happened to me a time or two, but only because I live in the ghetto. So. Yeah. But, all right, so I don't know. Number one, just before we even go any further, JP, you've listened to the bedtime stories account of this, read up on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? Man, like I told you last night, I think they should call this place Angel Dust Ranch if he's really seeing the kind of things he says he's seen. And we'll get into a lot of the paranormal activity he claims to have happened. But it's just like it's almost like Skinwalker Ranch to the nth degree. I mean, he's seeing all kinds of crazy stuff.
And I think he went through this for about 20 years. And, you're right. I mean, it definitely seems, but there is a little bit of weight to his claim because you've got other witnesses. You've got people not associated with him that have reported seeing things over his ranch or from the road, and people who just the whole area knows that place to be cursed long before he bought it. Yeah. But so, like, at this point, John, as the years go on, he's starting to see, like, glowing lights and orbs in the sky, right? Even seeing portals open up, he claims, and then these things, which does kind of lead into the interdimensional beings like we've talked about. Yeah. Portals, I mean, it could be wormholes, just shortcuts, but it could be a wormhole to another dimension. I mean,
didn't he say he even saw like some Sasquatch-looking creatures
standing on the edge of his property? It's like they were, almost like they were watching him from the edge of his property, like these shadow Sasquatch type beings.
And a lot of people think that Sasquatch, the reason there's never been one captured or a really solid sighting, is they're trans-dimensional creatures as well.
I have heard that, yes.
We even talked about how they may travel using a DMT and things like this. But anyway.
Yeah, could be. But so, at this point, he's seeing lots of different stuff. And so he's finally just fed up with it. So no one can really help him. So he goes to the local media. And that's where, of course, the scrutiny begins. Because the second you go public and try to get attention for something, automatically, a lot of times the ones that compel me are the ones where someone never went public with it. It wasn't until like someone else had an experience there and brought it to light that they finally open up and share what they've been through and things like that.
Yeah, because like a lot of traumas, a lot of times whether you're a witness or even a victim, you don't want to share it. You just want to suppress it, and never talk about it again.
Right, and that's the case for that's why I do believe, well, not necessarily I believe. I mean, we're both very skeptical of the paranormal, but that's why I give more credence, I guess, to some accounts like that, kind of reluctant accounts or. Right. suppressed stuff. But yeah, he goes to the media. But the reason he went to the media, according to him, was he wanted help. He wanted someone to do something. And what's interesting is that he says on several occasions he saw these crafts being pursued by what looked like military aircraft.
Yeah.
So he was convinced that the government knew about this and was basically just not helping him. Like they knew it was happening. Maybe they were after it or they were studying it and were just playing the fool when he would bring it up, or try to get them to do something about it.
Yeah.
So then one of the big things that happened, well, actually, you know what? We're going to talk about the big thing that happened. I think was kind of the catalyst where he was like, I'm done. But before we get to that, I mean, he also accounts a time where his Rottweiler had, and I never say Rottweiler right, so excuse me, but his Rott chased, he heard it barking, looked outside and saw it pursuing three or four of these things, and it actually bit one. And the thing, same deal, kind of screeched. They disappeared, to which if they have the ability to disappear, I don't know why they didn't just disappear when the dog started pursuing them, why they decided to run and then go, oh, crap, okay, all right, now there is real danger, let's go. But nonetheless, then they disappeared. Well, apparently the dog then choked and died.
Oh, my God.
He described it, because according to this guy, and this is where it does sound a little crazy, but again, just stay with us. He claims to have killed several of these beings, and they always die after he kills them, which is very convenient, of course. But I think it was somewhere in the teens.
Yeah, they just like vanish, right? Just
yeah.
Like poof.
And I might be getting the number wrong, but I swear I thought it was like 18 of them or something he claimed to have killed. He did, however, they did leave behind. He described their blood as having the consistency of like brake fluid. And he did get like tissue and blood samples, which we'll talk about in a bit, that were in fact sent off to a lab. But so and they had several other dogs die in the same way. And they started finding horses mutilated, started finding horses just killed. And the thing that I'm seeing like I said, Skinwalker Ranch, man, and again, there's so many layers to Skinwalker Ranch that we definitely might not have reached the right one. But I really get the feeling that Skinwalker Ranch just seems to be more like paranormal activities happening, and the people that live there just happen to be witnessing it. It's not targeted particularly at them, you know what I mean? Whereas this, it seems like the entities just are straight up after them.
Yeah, and when you say the government wouldn't assist at all, it almost makes it seem like they're just letting them kind of be like a control group, see what these forces do to this unwitting family. And
that could very well be it. I mean, if there's one thing we know is that our government does not mind using civilians as guinea pigs.
That's right.
So that definitely could be. They could be completely aware of everything going on, and they're just like, no, we're just going to sit back and see what happens. But so, all right, so we talked about the dog. The Ghost Adventures crew showed up, stayed on the ranch for a few days. Now, what's interesting to note is the Ghost Adventures crew from the Travel Channel, they came to the conclusion that it was not, in fact, extraterrestrial beings, but demonic beings that were basically disguising themselves as extraterrestrials, parading around as extraterrestrials, but they weren't, in fact. And I have heard on other paranormal channels of demons taking on the form of aliens, just trying to mislead the public and things like that, But and the reason why is they say the paranormal activity, they witnessed a lot of it while on the ranch. And they say that it ceased whenever they would start praying or using like Christian religious scripts. The beings would back off, which had them believe that it was more demonic than it was extraterrestrial. But either way, so they also came to the conclusion that there was an old man that was haunting the property, and he had shot himself in the house at some point. But from and then finally this one thing, this big thing that happened, definitely. I mean, I don't know the abilities of demons. I mean, we had we have a series we did about a year ago, perhaps, where we had like 5 or 6 different guests come in one by one and give their personal accounts of the paranormal things that had happened to them. And remember, we did have that one guy, Andrew, that said that he doesn't believe there are ghosts or paranormal entities that every bit of it is demons. That he thinks demons disguise themselves as loved ones, as aliens, to, just to cover up their true nature.
Yeah, a lot of Christians feel that way. When you die, you go one of two places. So if you're seeing grandma pop back up after she's dead, it's just a demon trying to get on over on you.
Yeah, that's a pretty common belief. So, what do you, if you had to classify that, what do you think? I mean, do you think demonic? Do you think extra terrestrial? Do you think transdimensional? I mean, just so far, what are you thinking?
Well, if we're going to go on the side of this is all just BS, it's a hoax, I would say that the guy he encounters the first go-round, the monster hunter, is probably just cooking up some really bad meth out there, and he got this guy to smoking it. Now he's seeing all kinds of crazy stuff. On the other hand, if we're going on the side of, there's real phenomena going on, I would say that maybe the government was out there experimenting, maybe created some trans-dimensional rift, and now all kinds of crazy stuff's bleeding through, and the government's just kind of sitting back, as we said, and letting things play out and taking notes.
Just observing.
Yeah, I mean, it could be they're trying to weaponize interdimensional
Of course they are. Yeah. We know all governments of the world want to weaponize everything they can. Yeah. Before you know it, we'll have frickin' kitty cats with frickin' laser beams attached to their frickin' heads.
I've heard of that technology.
But I believe they tried it on sharks before. Joke. Anyways, but when you said the monster hunter guy, I thought you were going to say like a Scooby-Doo situation. Like he was the one. They'll capture one of these aliens and pull the mask off and be like, Mr. Jenkins, and that he was behind it all. But
it makes sense.
So there was one big event where John had even, now this part sounds a little crazy, but according to what I've read, his wife was consensual with this and maintains that, no, it wasn't a crazy thing. Like they did it because it would seem to be a lot of attention on his wife. Mm-hmm. They really were after his wife. So he'd even gotten to where he was handcuffing her to the bed after this event I'm going to tell you about. Yeah, like I hear he's handcuffing his wife to the bed. We might want to send like a welfare check or something out there that doesn't. But so this made him start handcuffing her to the bed. So one night he's sleeping and he wakes up and there's a giant beam like coming through the wall from outside. And at this point, he hadn't really been firing guns because I think this is like a 10-acre ranch. So I mean, it's a fairly big piece of property, but there are neighboring properties and stuff. So he hadn't wanted to fire his gun and have the neighbors think that something. Like, I guess, they didn't want to call the cops and all of that. So he had been using katanas and swords. Swords and bats and things like that. But so he grabs what I listened to described it as an assault rifle. So for the really technical gun people, I don't know what model it was or if it even was an assault rifle. A lot of times modern sporting rifles get called assault rifles and they're not. But anyways, he grabs his rifle and it's got a big magazine on it. And he goes outside, and there's this glowing, like, orb, basically, very similar to what he's been seeing cruising around his property. So he starts shooting at it, unloads an entire, 30-round magazine on this bad boy. And he's hearing the bullets hit what sounds like metal, little ping, ping, pings. So it seems to have no effect on the craft. So he drops his magazine, reloads another magazine, and, starts firing again. And I think after another magazine or two, the craft, because the beam was still there and his wife had been, he actually saw her before he ran outside with the gun, he had saw her get lifted off the bed. Like this beam was beaming her up in the process of just straight snatching her out of bed. So, finally after a couple of magazines, the beam disappears and the craft just takes off, I believe, through a portal. Pretty sure it went through a portal. If it didn't, it just disappeared, took off super quick. But I'm pretty sure it went through a portal. And portals seem to be a common thing with both this and Skinwalker Ranch because you notice Skinwalker Ranch, there's lots of reports or theories that there's a portal to another dimension there. But this thing takes off. And then after that, he started handcuffing his wife to the bed. Which was...
Yeah, what if there's a fire or something or, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. But so after this, he's gone public, and I guess at a certain point, he he had been he had been talking to enough sources that he claims that one day he was out in a barn and looked and saw these two men in black outside of his gates. And he says, like, to his amazement, it almost is like they phased right through the gates. Ooh. Because reportedly the beings he had been seeing also could phase like very ghost-like qualities, but they seemed extraterrestrial. Again, 4 feet tall, big heads, just kind of your typical what you think of with a gray, I guess, except for just solid black. And apparently he says that they're extremely cold to the touch, like just deathly cold, and just solid black. But anyway, so the men in black come through the gate, and they basically just walk right up to him and tell him to keep his mouth shut. Stop, your standard run-of-the-mill Men in Black experience. Yeah. Tell him, to stop talking about it. Don't tell anybody else about what's going on, yada, yada, yada. Then they walk away and then just seemingly disappear. A lot of folks think the Men in Black themselves are actually extraterrestrials because he also reported that they emitted a foul odor. Huh. Which, it could have just been bad BO.
Yeah, could be.
But nonetheless, I mean, it was definitely your typical like extraterrestrial Men in Black encounter. But so some things to note before we go any further is this man, I think, wanted $1 million for the property beforehand. He ended up selling it for 5 times what he wanted. So this guy got millions for this property, which lead a lot of people to believe that it was just a really good real estate marketing campaign, that he just took a property that was somewhat valuable, but made tons and tons of money off of it. However, there are still some things to note that add a little bit of weight to his story. I mean, for one, the people that interview him say that as crazy as this all sounds, I mean, hearing me recall, it sounds like I'm talking about some fantasy sci-fi story, not a real-life account of things happening. But say that this guy seems very legit. I mean, there's pain in his voice. I mean, it definitely doesn't seem like he's just your typical crazy guy or BSer trying to spread a story. That he actually seems to be very sincere in what he's saying. Also, he was doing an interview, a live interview on a web stream with someone where you could actually find the video of like a little gray alien looking head. He didn't notice it.
What?
Like poking around a corner. Like if he's sitting in a chair in front of the camera, there's a doorway behind him, which, I mean, again, this could just be his wife crouched down, sticking something around the corner, but it just wasn't acknowledged until, like, I guess viewers or after the fact, were like, whoa, what the hell was that? It's not like he stopped mid-interview. It was like, whoa, oh, there's an alien? Oh, look, alien. I mean, like, it wasn't even acknowledged. Also, again, there are accounts from other people, that have seen things. And I don't know, man. I mean, it definitely does seem very far-fetched, but there are still some things that make you kind of go, huh? And I mean, especially with everything going on at Skinwalker Ranch, it just seems to be something weird. I mean, again, they're not far away either.
Yeah.
They're very close to each other. So I don't know, man. I don't really know how I feel about the whole thing. The logical side of me wants to go, this guy just wanted to sell his property. I mean, this is a 20-year story too, though. I mean, put yourself in your shoes, though. I mean, if you're on a strange property and you're asking whatever for it, I mean, which a big ranch, I've seen the house. It's a nice house. So, I mean, $1 million might be in the neighborhood. I don't know what property goes for in Arizona, but then somebody, and that's what I want to know. Now, that I haven't found yet, whether he jacked the price up or if perhaps someone just came to him and offered him like $5 million or however much. It was like, hey, I'll give you this for the property because... yeah, if my house is haunted and I'm sitting here talking about how haunted it is, and then somebody walks up and goes, I want to buy your haunted house for $14 million. Here you go. Right. Take my truck too, I mean, you just did it for the money. But I mean, I want to know, if he actually jacked the price up or if it was offered.
Yeah, this is a real humdinger, man. I mean, you've got such a plethora of paranormal experience all in one locality, and this one dude who eventually made a butt ton of money off of it. So I don't know, man. It's a tough one. It's a real tough one.
I don't really quite know how I feel on it yet, because it's one of those, I almost feel like I don't want to discount something before like I talk to him myself, you know?
Mm-hmm. And isn't it true that the previous owner, after he had come forward with all of his accounts, the previous owner had spoke up and said that she had had similar experiences?
You know, I don't know, JP. I don't know if I heard that. I mean, do you think you remember hearing that on the Bedtime Stories account?
I did some digging, and yeah, a lady who used to be live on the property had very similar experiences.
I guess the real thing would be, did he know she had those experiences beforehand? Because if he did, then he could have definitely capitalized on an already created idea and made a profit off of it. But if he didn't know, then that definitely adds a little more credence to his story. We actually have an engineer in studio that helps us out with all the engineering side of things, and he's a fairly religious guy. If you've listened to our podcast before, you hadn't heard him for a while, but his name's Julius. Julius, say hello.
Hello.
So, Julius, we were talking earlier about this ranch that's supposedly haunted by I don't know if haunted's the right word, but it's these extraterrestrial / dimensional beings or whatnot. But what's interesting to note is that the Ghost Adventures crew went out and they said that they don't believe they're extraterrestrial. They believe they're demonic, that the demons are masquerading as extraterrestrials to hide what they really are. Now, as someone that's fairly religious, number one, all right, let me just ask you, where do you stand on things like ghosts? Because we actually had a guy in here who's religious, and he told us that he didn't believe in ghosts, that he thinks that ghosts are actually just demons taking the form of someone you love to get close to you. Where do you stand on that?
No, actually, I absolutely do believe in ghosts.
You do believe in ghosts?
Absolutely.
So you believe there can be souls that haven't went to either yet?
They're not souls that I don't believe they're necessarily going to either, but there are souls that, you know, you hear people talking about like guardian angels.
Right.
You know, and I always think of that as, you know, like, you know, this is the ghostly figures just kind of watching over you. But, you know, if you want to get religious for a second, you know, the Holy Ghost is a real thing.
Right.
You know, they run back and forth. And I believe demons can be in people and possess people.
So that was my next question. Do you believe that demons could take the form of extraterrestrials to throw you off?
Absolutely.
Do you know why maybe they would do that instead of just being demons? I mean, isn't that scary enough? Like, hey,
that's their job, is to try to get you to not do the right thing.
So, I mean, but like, all right, so some accounts of this are like they've killed horses, they've killed dogs, they've continuously tried to abduct this man's wife. But the Ghost Adventures crew, again, said that after reading scripture and using, like, religion, that a lot of times these things would back off. And that's, like, seemed to halt them in their tracks. However, this is kind of the real humdinger here, kind of to wrap up this podcast, that I found super interesting. And JP, I think you and I were talking about it beforehand. It was really cool. So this guy actually got a tissue and blood sample from one of these things, because he claimed to have killed a bunch of them, but they disappeared when he killed them, which is convenient.
Yeah.
But he sent it off to a scientist, and forgive me for not knowing his name. I came into this podcast with that scientist's name in my head, and of course, after 33 minutes, it's completely evaded my mind. But he did send it to a real scientist, and the scientist tested it and sent it back and said that this was of nothing on planet Earth. Like, he was very excited that these DNA tests concluded like it was not, it had like chlorophyll in it, like it was definitely something not human or really of planet Earth.
In us, like in humans?
Don't know. I'm not a biologist.
Me neither.
But there was there were a lot of things that had him thinking like, this is, you know, and he was going to reach out to the rest of the scientific community and told the owner he'd get back with him. Well, then the owner goes weeks without hearing from this guy, and so he tries to get in touch with him and finds out that the guy's died. Not only the guy, but the guy and his wife. The scientist and his wife are now actually dead. Now,
that's creepy. Also,
keep in mind they were in their 80s.
Oh, well.
I mean, that is kind of where you start getting towards the downward slope.
Yeah, everything starts breaking then, you know, falling apart.
The strangest part of their death, though, is that when he asked about the samples he had sent, the lab had mysteriously caught on fire and everything, and it was destroyed. So that right there definitely adds,
A level of suspicion.
right. Like,
Yes.
I mean, fires do accidentally happen and old people do die, but I mean, that's just a little convenient. It's almost as convenient as claiming to have killed 18 aliens and their bodies disappear.
Yeah, they just like evaporate, right? Almost like when you kill a vampire in a movie or something.
I almost think of like projection, like astral projection.
Astral projection.
Julius, are you familiar with astral projection?
Somewhat, yeah.
Just where you can project your consciousness out of your body and go do things. I mean, it's almost as if these
I did that with
beings.
3 kids.
What?
Like where I just project myself out and go do other things.
Oh, well, you got kids. You definitely projected something out.
At some point, yeah.
No. I gotta leave on that one.
But anyways, getting back to Stardust Ranch. I don't know. What do you, JP? Do you think that extra dimensional beings could maybe astral project? Like perhaps that's what's happening, is that they were in another dimension, but maybe were astrally projecting themselves here, and there was some physical form, but I mean, actually, they weren't dying. I mean,
Maybe I'm leaning more. If this was beyond belief factor fiction, I'm leaning more towards fiction on this one. But yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of ways things can bleed over if these other dimensions in fact exist.
Well, let me ask you a question then. What makes you have belief in Skinwalker Ranch and not have belief in this one?
Well, I think there's a lot more documented evidence with the Skinwalker Ranch. Like the guy who disturbed the ground, he did some digging, and like his scalp literally detaches from his skull.
Right,
I just think there's a lot of different accounts from a lot of different people, and a bit more evidence than with this guy.
Well, we had said something similar too with Skinwalker Ranch, that it was very convenient that the owner had sold the property for a pretty penny and then got himself a job as the ranch manager,
Exactly.
So we're definitely not saying that Skinwalker Ranch is 100% authentic either. There definitely is a level of suspicion there, but you're right. With Skinwalker Ranch, there are a ton more documented things. I mean, there's actual videos out there you could find. And I just don't believe in the because this guy, John, sold Stardust Ranch in 2016. So, I mean, it's a fairly modern deal, 20 years, like I guess 96 to 2016, somewhere in that range. You didn't videotape any of this?
Yeah, no trail cams, no nothing. Yeah,
I mean, you can go to Walmart and buy a trail cam for like $40.
Yeah.
And then just, check and see. I mean, that to me is the one where it's like, man, if you're trying to convince people of your story, I mean, I could understand if this was in like the 40s or 50s, where that just wasn't something the average person could get a hold of, like camera equipment or good camera equipment. But in the modern age, I mean,
21st century. I mean,
my dad had a camera in '96.
a
So
camera in 1990. So yeah.
So before we close out, Julius, since we don't know when we'll get you on the podcast again, extra dimensional beings, extraterrestrials. What are your thoughts on that?
You caught me off guard there. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence.
That's good. You got an open mind, though.
Yeah,
You don't
I-
just instantly dismiss them.
I don't dismiss it. I tend to believe that possibly there could be life. I mean, you follow what they've been doing on Mars, and they've tracked water that's frozen under the dirt, and have proven they have some kind of weather system. They probably couldn't live there
Right.
the way it is, but I believe it could be.
Yeah, I mean, the universe is ginormous. I feel like most people that say they don't believe in extraterrestrials just don't really understand the scope of the
I think
universe.
we should go raid Area 51 since everybody's worried about coronavirus.
I'm good. I've seen the videos, man. They don't let you get very close before they have those big white trucks roll up and armed people come out and say, "What are you doing?"
Oh my god.
We got JP. He's good.
Yeah, we'll let JP seduce them while we sneak around
Exactly.
and go find the extraterrestrials.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I would love to, as soon as we can, get Julius back in to just do a conversation about ghosts and spirituality. Julius, I know you were saying that like you believe in ghosts as well as demons. I'm just very curious to hear your take because my memory's rusty as it usually is, but like
That's a problem at your age.
It's true. It's true.
We're the same age.
Are you in the school of thought that it's you die and your spirit basically waits in the grave for Jesus to come back at the end of days to judge the living and the dead?
Isn't that more? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm speaking ignorantly here. But isn't that more of a Who are the people that knock on your doors?
Jehovah's Witness.
Isn't that more of like a Jehovah's Witness?
Yes, because the Bible talks about what absent from the body is present with the Lord. So no, I don't believe you kind of wait in the balance. You go wherever.
Because some people believe if your body's destroyed, then you don't have a. Because I know that one of my friends, his grandmother was a Jehovah's Witness when we were younger. And he had said from what he understood, because he wasn't very religious, but that the belief was that your body rises from the grave when Jesus comes back, and then it'll be reformed as a new body. And they didn't believe in cremation and stuff, because if you did that, you destroyed your body, and therefore you wouldn't have one.
A lot of arguments about that. I don't necessarily believe in cremation just because the Bible talks about burying all throughout. But you have to realize, too, they didn't have the ability to cremate like we do in our day and age. But, to say that, I would say to your friend, and I've said this to other people, to say, well, what do you do with the people that drowned at sea or the people that are burned alive?
Right.
In a horrible accident or in a fire.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with people from
you put in a limitation on what God can do, because then you're limiting his deity.
Well, just think about like atomic bombs and
think about Hiroshima and
or like 9/11, where some people were actually incinerated.
I
mean, that's not their fault. They could have been like the most devout, good Christians, and it would be a shame that they would be punished because someone else destroyed their body.
Right. Or the Titanic. There's people that sing.
Which also the Old Testament, which I know is ruled out now, but the Old Testament also says if your testicles get crushed, you can't go to heaven. So,
but that's under the law. We're not under the law. Thank God we're under grace, because if we were under law, we'd all be in trouble.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm still in trouble, but, still.
Oh, no. But I think that'd be a great podcast, man. We get Julius back in. We talk about ghosts from sort of more of a...
We could call it God and Ghosts.
Yeah, God and Ghosts.
That'd be a good podcast.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We don't try to prove nor disprove anything. We just discuss it. Yeah. So, we don't, I'll tell you
what, while we're at the beach in a few weeks, we'll do that.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to the beach, and then Julius loves me so much that
going with him.
he's going with me.
Or, somewhere else.
I was going to say.
The campground.
I think our house is going to be a little bit more party-oriented than Julius's, but I've told him that work me and Beach Me are two different persons. Beach Justin is much like Paul Rudd and something.
I've heard you. I've never seen you at the beach, but I've heard you in your beach.
Oh, yeah.
Life. So it's much more relaxed.
Oh, yeah. But, so as we close out, Julius, let's just assume this guy's not lying. Let's say he's telling the truth and these things really happened to him. And I know you missed out on a little bit of the conversation, but I mean, of course, we're talking about like these beings that he saw in his room that tried to take his wife, 4 feet tall, black, cold as night. They disappear when he kills him. Would you lean more towards extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, or would you side with the Ghost Adventures crew and say that sounds like something demonic?
I would say it's more demonic.
Think so?
Because I do believe in demons.
Right.
They're absolutely real. I'm kind of on the fence with extraterrestrial, but demons, they're absolutely real. I mean, I can point that out biblically. I mean, I can point that out in just things I've seen in my own life with people that I know and love.
Right.
That I've seen, really... in one form or another, a demon kind of possessed that person. Because they're not, because when a demon possesses you, you're not in a right mind.
So demon possession doesn't have to be like the movies where you just like lose yourself 100% of the demon.
No.
They just kind of can influence your actions.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That explains the attitude I've been getting from the lady in the Burger King line. She used to be so sweet, and here lately she's just made me feel like I'm inconveniencing her. That's
interesting coming from Julia, saying you've had these experiences, especially being that you've made a career in mental health. So you obviously, you're familiar with something like schizophrenia or bipolar, so you can tell that.
So you separate those,
yes,
from demon possession, because a lot of people, a lot of skeptics of demons would say that mental health issues have been blamed for demonic possession. So you think that they both exist, and there's definitely a difference.
There's a difference. Oh yeah, there's a huge difference between the two.
Oh, man.
That'll be it. We should do that, man. That'd be it. Just call it God and Ghosts. We'll do that in the next. Yeah, Wednesdays. We pick a Wednesday that you're free to come in and podcast with us.
The beach, so.
Yeah. We'll go. We're both going to be at the beach, not this week, but next week. So, when we get back, Gods and Ghosts, God and Ghosts, not Gods and Ghosts, but God and Ghosts. Be a good podcast. So let us know your thoughts on Stardust Ranch. It's I don't know, man. What do you think about it? I mean, keep in mind it's a neighboring state, not that far from Skinwalker Ranch. So if there is some legitimacy to this, maybe there is something connecting the two.
Could be.
Or they just could be fabricated stories, in which case both have been profitable at different times for certain people. So, but yeah, make sure you check out our Patreon if you enjoyed it. If you made it all the way to the end of this, I assume that you didn't hate the podcast too terribly. So make sure you check out our Patreon podcast. For as little as $1 a month, you get an extra 8 podcasts, which could be about this. It could be about debauchery. It could be about TV shows. Who knows? Just all kinds of different stuff, and it helps us support and grow this channel because eventually we do want to do video podcasts. But so check that out and stay weird. Until next time, I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
I'm Julius.
Hey, and we're the Podcasting Dead.